I was in desperate need of some extra cash, and my trusty old computer had served its purpose. I needed a new one. So I decided to list it on Craigslist, hoping to find a buyer willing to give it a new home. After a few days, I received an offer from a man who seemed genuinely interested in purchasing my PC. We exchanged a few messages and everything appeared to be going well. We agreed to meet at my place so he could look at it and try it before buying it. On the appointed day, the buyer showed up at my doorstep. He was accompanied by 2 other guys. My initial reaction was a mix of surprise and discomfort. I found it odd. I hadn't expected multiple people for a simple PC sale, but I thought that maybe they were just friends or tech enthusiasts who tagged along. We headed inside and I showed them the PC in question. The 3 of them crowded around, examining it closely. One of them asked if they could turn it on to check how it ran. I agreed, hoping to make the sale smoothly, even though I actually just wanted this to get over with as quickly as possible. The man that I had been texting with regarding the computer asked if he could use the bathroom. I said yes and told him it was upstairs, second door on the left hand. The 2 other guys proceeded to inspect my computer. They were opening things on the computer I had never seen and told me they were just checking to see approximately how much lifetime the PC had left and other technical stuff about the PC. It seemed legit enough, so I didn't think more of it. As they tinkered with the computer, I couldn't help but notice that it had been quite a while since one of the guys had asked to use my bathroom. I began to grow suspicious. Why would someone take so long in there during a simple transaction? I decided to excuse myself from the PC showcase and told the remaining 2 guys that I'd be back in a moment. As I approached the bathroom, I noticed that several drawers and cabinet doors throughout my home were wide open. Panic ran within me and I sort of froze in time as I realized what was happening. It was clear that the guy who allegedly needed the bathroom was going through my house looking for valuables, while the other 2 guys were stalling me. I quietly made my way back to the other 2 men. I decided to casually inform the 2 men that I'd be right back. I went to my room and locked the door and called the police. I stood up against the door without moving a muscle. I was so focused on trying to listen to what they were talking about. Some sentences were all mumble, but I was also able to make out some of what they were saying. "Where the hell did he go? Do you think he is on to us?" one of them said. All I could think was that the intruders had realized something was off. My heart was racing. I thought to myself that, this is it. This is the day I'm going to die. I could hear footsteps around the house and doors being open and closed. They knew that I was on to them. The sounds intensified. I could sense they were slowly coming closer to me. "Patrick!" one of them yelled, and the noises from the hallway stopped. I could then hear the door smacking, and the footsteps getting more and more distant. The relief I felt. I assumed they were gone, and I looked out the window and saw 3 men running away from my house. Never have the adrenaline been pumping so hard in my body. All I wanted was to make some money by selling my old PC. But instead, I lost my watch and PC. But what frustrates me the most is that I lost my wallet, which contains a picture of my beautiful little daughter that I do not have a duplicate of. So, my sister and I, we're not your typical 16-year-old girls. We've always been more into action and adventure than makeup and gossip. That's why we found ourselves inside our house, playing a game of catch with a ball that was way too big for our living room. I tossed the ball to my sister with all the strength I had. She skillfully maneuvered, but then disaster struck. The ball went past her, and with a loud crash, it smashed right into our parents' favorite lamp. Glass shattered everywhere, and we both looked at each other knowing that we messed up. I couldn't help but laugh even though we were in big trouble. We knew we had to replace the lamp before our parents came home. We weren't made of money, so we had to be thrifty. We decided to check Craigslist for a replacement. After some searching, we found a listing for a lamp that looked almost identical to the one we'd broken. The seller was less than 1 mile away and his price seemed reasonable. With a sense of hope, we contacted the seller. He agreed to meet us at his place to make the exchange. We made our way to the address he'd given us. When we arrived, we were met with a strange sight. The house was dark and there was no sign of anyone living here. The grass in the front hadn't been cut in years. We rang the doorbell several times, but no one answered. We called him to let him know we were at his house. This is the part where my sister and I got skeptical. He told us that he has moved a bunch of his furniture to a garage at another house he has nearby. He had just forgotten it himself. He gave us a new address. We really had to get this lamp, so we decided to go through with it. We went to the new address and the place seemed just as deserted as the house we just came from. Once again, we called the seller. He told us that he was at work, so we would have to go inside and pick it up ourselves. We asked what to do with the money and he told us that he trusted us to leave them in the garage. We approached the garage. Even though the man wasn't there, it still felt weird. It felt super weird. We went inside and looked for the lamp. It stood in the far back and the garage was filled with lots of crap. It felt like we were walking in a maze. We made our way to the lamp, and as we looked for the cash, the garage door slowly closed. My sister and I got terrified and at the same time confused. We ran towards the door, but it managed to close before we got there. I saw two buttons, one that said open and one that said close. I pressed the button that said open, and the door slowly began to open. But it didn't take long before it started closing again. We heard movement from inside the house and we seriously started to panic. I kept pushing the open button, but it kept closing almost immediately after. There was a slight delay from when the door opened and started closing again, so the door got all the way up to the middle of our thighs before it started closing again. While I kept pressing the button, my sister took this chair and aligned it with the door as it opened so we could squeeze out. Looking back, we often think about if it was the man controlling the door from inside his house. Even though it was scary, the funniest thing is that we never let go of the lamp and took it with us. We didn't even get to leave the money, so we got it for free. He never called afterwards to ask about the money, so we assumed that his plan was to get us trapped in there. I'm a single mom, and my son has special needs. Getting him to school and back was a daily challenge, and I needed a reliable chauffeur who could handle the job. One day, while chatting with a friend, she mentioned that Craigslist was a great place to find all sorts of services. So I thought I would give it a shot. I started doing some research on Craigslist and decided to post an ad for a chauffeur. It wasn't long before I received a reply from a man who looked to be around the age of 40, who seemed friendly and well-spoken on the phone. He had experience as a driver and came across as polite and professional. I thought I hit the jackpot. His name was Mike. Mike started driving my son to and from school, and everything seemed perfectly normal for the first couple of weeks. He was punctual, friendly, and my son liked him. One day, I received a call from my son's school. They informed me that he hadn't attended his last few classes. When I confronted my son, he hesitated but eventually spilled the beans. I knew that my son didn't have many friends, but he always seemed happy. I had no idea that it was a big deal, because I thought he enjoyed being by himself. It turns out that he had been skipping classes every day the past 2 weeks to go for longer drives with Mike before he got dropped off at home. I was furious and terrified at the same time. How could this guy manipulate my son like that? I confronted Mike and he played it off as a misunderstanding. He told me that my son had been begging him for the trips that they had been on because he didn't want to go to school. Every Saturday, my son and I had the same meal. He usually was looking forward to this. At dinner time, we chose a movie to play in TV and began to eat. Something wasn't right. He seemed more distant and scared. I felt helpless and worried, not knowing what was really going on during those rides. Finally, I decided to dig deeper. I checked my son's phone and discovered disturbing messages between him and Mike. It turned out that Mike had been grooming my son, manipulating him with gifts and empty promises, luring him into these secret trips. I couldn't believe the depth of deception and evil I had unknowingly allowed into our lives. The fear I felt was beyond anything I had ever experienced. My son was a victim, and I had unwittingly let it happen. In a fit of rage and desperation, I reported Mike to the police. They launched an investigation into his actions. It was revealed that he had a history of similar offenses, and I wasn't the only parent who had fallen victim to his scheme. I'm sure Craigslist can be useful in some ways, but if the action or service involve meeting with other people you don't know, think twice about it.